This is the Universal Wrestling Podcast. Inside the ring, outside the ring, it's all here.
We're talking about the greatest sport of all, professional wrestling.
Now here's your host,
the cream of the crop,
Nick Dieterding.
Come on! Welcome back to the Universal Wrestling Podcast. My name is Nick Dieterding. His name is Chris Dunn. Let's not bury the lead. Adam Cole, how are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
I am doing wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Chris, we've done a few of these episodes. It's really cool to talk to wrestlers and talk to the guys in the industry, but it's more important to talk about the awareness. Chris, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, Adam is somebody who I worked with a lot at WWE and at NXT, and always one of my favorite people. And we have this Leukemia and Lymphoma Society 10-week donation drive going on. And when I reached out to Adam, he was really excited to join. Like, he's had an insane day today. And, when you are as big of a star as Adam Cole, who has such a crazy schedule, finding the time to do something like this is really cool. But Adam, from what you're telling me, you've also have dealt with, this in your life, and just want to hear your experience.
Yeah. So without going into like crazy detail, my grandfather has dealt with issues with leukemia before. It's a very, very real thing that I do wish that more people had the chance to talk about and realize how much this does impact, other people and families and things like that. So again, Chris, the second we got the chance to talk about this, I was all on board with wanting to be involved in any way, in this very, very small way, to help in any capacity whatsoever. So it's affected my family for sure. My grandfather, who I was, very, very close with.
Yeah, it's something where, this organization, if you can, obviously, the people listening to this, like, everyone, money is money, and like, it is what it is. Anything you can spare, whether it's $10, $5, $1, it really helps. Yeah. Last year, through people giving small donations, like just in LA alone, I believe, this donation drive got close to 8 figures. And
wow.
Yeah. And
that's incredible. Oh
it's
my
insane.
God.
And I'm very bad with numbers, or I would give what I think it is. But and two, it's like, obviously it has leukemia and lymphoma in the name, but these doctors and these scientists, like, this money goes towards multiple blood cancers, and it has helped so many different people, and techniques that doctors use now. So unfortunately, cancer is something a lot of people deal with. And this organization, if you have time or to please read up on it. If you've had family who's been affected by it, take a second. They do so much good work, and they're definitely worth your time if you have it. And if you can spare any money, definitely worth that too. Now that that's out of the way, we talked to one of my favorite people that I ever worked with at WWE, Adam Cole. And I'll tell you this, Adam joined WWE about a year after I did, 2017. Barclays debut. And I was on the road working like Raw and SmackDown. I eventually started doing NXT, and I started working with Adam a lot. And it's like it was the first time I really worked with a talent that I really developed a good everyday rapport with, because we were both new and doing a lot of different things together. And I got a lot of internal praise for working with Adam. And I was feeling really good about my writing. And then I left NXT, and Adam's promos were still as good, still as awesome, still as strong, because he is the best promo in the business. And no matter what, the way NXT worked when it was the tapings pre-going live, you would get with talent sometimes usually you have a segment as a promo, and then maybe a 2-segment match, 3-segment match. Usually Adam had 2 big promos and at least 1 big match, and maybe also a 1-seg match. But he always found time, and we would work on these promos together, and he always crushed it. And no matter what you gave him, it was always a home run. So thank you for doing this. It's so cool to kind of get to walk down memory lane and talk about AEW, and maybe talk about some of our ROH stuff too with you.
Oh my God, of course. That was the nicest intro I think I've ever gotten. So thank you very, very much. Again, the feeling is very, very mutual. So it was because it is, as that entire process of a television day is very stressful. Like,
Oh,
live TV is insane. Aside from the fact that we care so much about it personally, again, when you think about the idea of like over 1 million people at the minimum are going to be watching this, it's overwhelming. So you almost have to like completely block it out. So Chris, I felt like me and you had this really good like connection where we would almost like ignore the rest of the world, and me and you would just have a conversation, and we go, this is what I'm going to say. And you would tell me, or you would go, yep, that sounds good. And I'd go, all right, let's go kill it. And then we'd go do the thing.
Yeah. So, like, the big thing about writing for, WWE or NXT, or I think wrestling in general, I'm never the one who has to perform it.
Sure.
So it's really like, this is the story. Like, there'd be some days where like I would give you a promo and you would say it word for word, or you would go like, I'm not really feeling that. And like we would kind of like retype it together, and just like knowing that like, all right, this is the story, this is where we're trying to get, what's like the best way to do it. It also really helped because like as time went on, you have to go get your promos approved. And like I kind of realized like Hunter didn't know me that well when I started. So like he would like, I felt in a good way, and I mean in a very positive way, because I learned a lot from him and really admire him. He would like really go through everything I wrote with a fine-tooth comb. I eventually realized a trick. If I bring Adam Cole with me to Gorilla, he's just going to approve it. And it's just like, he would just be like, yeah, read it for me. All right, good.
Yeah. Well, you know what, to me, one of the biggest things, at least in my experience, when it comes to stuff like that, because like we had talked about in the beginning when we didn't really know each other, and you were kind of figuring out who I was, not only as a character, but like my strengths and weaknesses as a performer. It was like over time, I really felt like you were in my head, which made the process so much easier, where like we have talked about before, I've told you this privately, and now I can say it as well to the rest of the world. But I've told you countless times, like, yeah, Chris, this is exactly what I would say word for word. So that was a really, really cool thing. And I do have this really strong belief, again, in high pressure situations. Of course, we shouldn't lie to one another. If I were to deliver something incredibly poorly, I would expect you to say, Adam, this is terrible. And if you were to give me something word for word and I read it and I go, oh my God, Chris, I would never say this word for word. We could tell each other, but I do believe one of the strongest things in a high pressure situation like that is like encouragement and support of one another. Like that's what I feel. That's why I feel our rapport and our relationship worked so well. I think because you trusted me to perform the words that you would write out, and I trusted you to come up with certain ideas or words of where we're going. Like, for example, if you had something written that Adam Cole would say, and then I would go, hey, I love that. I love the idea, but maybe let's change this, or this. You trusted me to, continue with that process. And I also trusted your process as well. So I think that's why the relationship works so well. I really do.
Yeah, it was awesome. And like, I genuinely miss writing for you. And like, it's, even though I've gone to like do things more in LA now, like there are people like with you and the rest of, UE and like, the Prophets and Bianca and the Vikings. Like I genuinely miss working with these people like you guys all the time, because like, not only are you brilliant performers, or you're awesome people. And like, we'll kind of get to it. Like, I think as we kind of talk about your career of like, like when the point when like NXT went live and like the brand split in a big way, like I was really heartbroken leaving NXT, because like NXT was the best part of the job. And like, I was really bummed that I wasn't going to write for you and some other talent there. But especially the UE, like all four of you guys, like always the best to deal with. And like it's kind of like, like if you look at like basketball, like if you give like, Michael Jordan the ball in the fourth quarter, you're feeling pretty confident. And that's why I always felt with you and the rest of the guys. So yeah, it's just cool. And it's cool to be talking to you. And like, it's but yeah, let's kind of get into it. Like,
Sure.
you know, I think like one thing. So let's kind of start at the beginning of NXT for you. Barclays, Drew McIntyre wins the NXT championship, redemption story, huge moment, like a moment that like, man, like if that was like 99 Nitro, that's like Lex Luger being Hogan, like the whole roster coming out. But instead, the company has such a strong belief in you, they decided to have you debut and put you in that spot. What was that like?
Yeah, that entire night and that whole process was so wild on so many levels, especially when you just said what you said, where it's like, again, a guy like Drew McIntyre coming back. Obviously, they have a massive amount of faith in him. I think the world of Drew McIntyre, his career in WWE and his career in general kind of speaks for itself, obviously. So when you worded it like, yeah, they decided to end the pay-per-view or that takeover with me closing the show with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. Yeah, that is pretty crazy, especially considering they had never met me before. Like it was all phone conversations and all that stuff. But I remember being so incredibly nervous on so many levels. Number one, I had tried out for WWE like multiple times, like twice, to the point where one time I tried out for WWE and I was still working for Ring of Honor, but I had just kind of started my career there. And I was told, yeah, you're definitely getting signed. So like drop the Ring of Honor television championship. You were on the way. So I literally lost the championship and ROH was kind of booking me in a situation where they could kind of phase me out. And then I finally got the call from Canyon at the time who said, hey, we just want you to know it's a no, but it's just a not right now. It's not a no forever. It's a not right now. Hunter has this vision because at the time when I tried out, it was the end of FCW. And I guess Hunter had this vision for what NXT was going to be. And Canyon had told me that, you know, he envisions NXT as this company that brings in the best guys from all over the world and really showcases them in a different light. So in my mind, I'm thinking they're just being nice to me right now. They're just telling me no, but they don't want to be mean. And I respect that, but I was crushed. But again, the idea that Canyon said, he goes, go out and become the best wrestler in the world. Like go out and do your thing and travel the globe and all that stuff. And funny enough, that's exactly what I tried to do. You know, I became a 3-time ROH world champion, the longest reigning pro wrestling guerrilla world champion. I went to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I did all this stuff. And I'm so thankful that happened because had I gone to FCW or the beginning stages of NXT as the Adam Cole that I was in 2013, I would not have had that epic takeover moment where I jumped Drew McIntyre and ended Takeover Brooklyn the way that I did. So it was Canyon and Hunter were being completely 100% honest. I just had to hold up my end of the bargain in a lot of ways. But I remember, like, specifically as far as that night goes, I remember thinking, God, I hope people care. Like, I hope people are excited. I hope they know who I am. I knew the NXT fans were quote unquote smart fans and they paid attention to a lot of stuff that was going on in the wrestling world. And I remember running out and being like, oh my God, I hope so badly they're a little bit excited. And fortunately they were, to the point where I was so nervous, by the way, that a lot of people don't know this, but I almost fell on my face. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when I ran into the ring and the crowd really started erupting the way that they did, literally there's a clip of a fan cam where I start running to attack Drew McIntyre and I almost fell. Like I literally, my legs were jello. And the idea of thinking that my debut night in NXT would have involved me falling on my face terrifies me. But I had so much adrenaline and excitement going through my body. Also I was wearing dress shoes. Dress shoes are never a good idea when you're doing a wrestling angle. So that didn't help. But fortunately everything worked out and I caught myself and all that stuff. But I remember that we were going to end the night with me, Kyle, and Bobby all standing there and I was walking up the ramp, and I wasn't going to do the Adam Cole Bebe thing. Like Hunter and everyone else wanted me, Bobby, and Kyle to just stand there, just dominantly and just be like, oh, this is the new crew that's going to be here. And I was walking up the ramp and the crowd was chanting Adam Cole. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the thing I've been doing forever just to see what happens. And I swear to God, I did not expect the entire crowd to do Adam Cole Bebe with me. And I think that was actually really important, because I think that was like not a wake up call. That's not the right word, but like a realization to everyone in NXT that that audience, the audience they're trying to capture, had been paying attention to everything that I'd been doing, or most of them had. So that was a really, really cool moment for me too, where they ended up putting it on the WWE YouTube page as well. But yeah, just such an amazing night.
It was so awesome. And like a couple things to backtrack for 1 second. Like,
sure, yeah.
Hunter and Canyon were 100% serious about it. I wasn't at the company at that time.
Yeah.
But I have been, when you go down to NXT, you're in like a very small room at the Performance Center with like Hunter, Sean, occasionally Canyon, Regal, and you're having these conversations, and like talent comes up, and a lot of times Hunter will say like, I want to give this person a year or 2 years outside of the system so they can bring those things in. And it's very important to him to make sure like everyone kind of is not fully formed, but they've grown and they have life experience.
Yes.
And they know how to work in different situations, especially because that's how he did it.
Right. Exactly. And that is so true. Like you think as a talent at the time, again, like I had touched on a little bit, where I'm like, oh, they're just being nice and they're trying to nicely tell me they don't want to hire me. But it is true. It's very, very true. And I seriously thank God every day that they did not decide to hire me in 2013. My entire career would be different. So I am, again, it is very, very true. I totally believe that.
And I think like I don't know if you kind of look at this way, but this is how I kind of look at it. Like a couple things. Like one, I think you were such a key, like that moment, because like one, Takeover Brooklyn, even though it's in August, that's at the time it was like the mania for NXT.
Yes.
So like that's essentially like at the end of Austin KO sending somebody new out to drop Austin. Two is like at the time Kevin Owens and like Sammy had like moved on. Like a bunch of people had been like called up, and like almost to too big of an extent where because of the brand extension or the brand split, so much talent was taken from NXT. So like you needed to give somebody the ball in such a big way. And like that spot was given to you and you ran with it in such a big way. And like to talk about like timing, like, I think Drew was always had like a rocket to the main roster because like, you look at his body and his past experience, and like he looks like at the time, worst case scenario, a lot of times like when you're building talent, if somebody is just built to a point as the floor to put the top guy over, that's a massive success. Anything else is gravy. And Drew's obviously surpassed that in a big way. So he was always going to kind of be sure for that world. I think one thing, like talking about like timing, about like not coming in the FCW time, coming in right then, Gabe Sapolsky also started. And like before Gabe, obviously such a fantastic eye for talent, such a massive brain and like leader in independent wrestling. Like the weeks before you started, like he was like the two tapings before, I think he pitched bringing Bobby in and then pitched bringing Kyle in. And they were supposed to be one-offs, but then everything kind of they impressed and it kind of all came together in such a great way. Yeah, for sure. And funny enough, like, again, I worked for Gabe in 2009. And actually the first time I met Kyle O'Reilly was in Gabe used to run a company called Dragon Gate USA, which was like a really hot independent promotion. This was following him running or being the booker for Ring of Honor. So I remember me and Kyle O'Reilly
met the day we wrestled each other. I started wrestling in 2008. I met and wrestled Kyle O'Reilly in 2009. And we had this Dragon Gate USA, pre-show match where we were like before the pay-per-view, and it was 6 minutes. That was all we had. And we had a match in the ECW arena, or the 2600 arena. And that actually ended up being like the template for what Evolve was supposed to be.
Oh, wow.
Which is so insane. When you go back and look on it, considering how young me and Kyle were in the wrestling industry. But me and Kyle have been married to each other, like, not to go off on a tangent, but that small period where I left NXT and went to AEW, and Kyle was still in NXT and then ended up coming to AEW. That 3-month period was the longest amount of time me and Kyle have not worked in the same promotion together since 2009.
Oh, wow.
Which is stupid. That's so crazy that we've somehow ended up together in the same promotion the entire time. But it's wild how that works. Again, me, Kyle, Bobby have all been kind of attached at the hip in a lot of ways for our entire careers, whether it be NXT, AEW, Ring of Honor, you name it. We've been together.
And you can't fake that either,
Yeah, right. It's wild. So crazy. So crazy.
Hey, Adam, one of my favorite matches is the NXT Championship match on SmackDown in 2019. If you're a wrestling fan, you know it. You versus Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
What made that so special?
Oh, my God. So many different factors. Number one, part of what made me decide to, I don't know, not decide, but like further confirmed my love for the art form of pro wrestling was Bryan Danielson. I remember discovering Ring of Honor, and the two guys who I got DVDs for Christmas one year, because I kept, I kept hearing about them on the internet, was CM Punk in Ring of Honor and Bryan Danielson and Ring of Honor. And I remember I got their ROH DVD compilations one year for Christmas. And I remember being captivated by Punk's promos so much. And that was kind of what made me fall in love with wanting to get good at the art of talking. And then Bryan made me realize this whole different style and realism and almost perfectionism, to the pro wrestling industry. So I've been a fan of him my entire life. When I was in high school, I would go to Ring of Honor shows in Philadelphia or New York, and I would watch Bryan wrestle in these epic main event matches. Like Bryan had a match with Kenta at the first ever Manhattan Center show that Ring of Honor had. And I was there, like, as a fan. One of my best friends, his dad drove me and my friend to that show, and we were there. And I remember driving the whole way, that 4 hours back home, and me just being wide awake, just thinking about this match and how cool it was. So I've always wanted to wrestle Bryan because I thought the world of him. Because right when I ended up getting signed and working for Ring of Honor, Bryan got signed to WWE. So he was gone. That was just not a possibility for me anymore. So, and then that combined with the fact that it was a Friday or whatever, and I woke up super late. I had like a late night for some reason on Thursday. I for real think I had like a busy day doing, like, whether it was media or something. Like I was very, very busy the day before, and I slept in super late. I'm getting up. I just finished eating breakfast, and I'm walking around in shorts, no shirt. Yeah. And I look at my phone, and I'm getting a call from Matt Bloom, and I'm like, oh, this is strange. And I pick up the phone, and he goes, hey, can you be at this airport in 1 hour? We need you to go to SmackDown. I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll drop whatever I'm doing. He goes, okay, cool. I'll send you the address. He hangs up. He sends me the address. The airport is 50 minutes away. So I have 10 minutes to pack all of my stuff and go to this airport and get on this plane with me and the rest of the NXT crew. Shawn Michaels is there. I'm putting my boots on this airplane. Shawn is trying to explain to me what I'm doing. We end up getting there and getting like a police escort to the building. And we're driving there, and there's police sirens. And again, we get there, and Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman are in the ring cutting a promo. and trying to take as much time as they can in this SmackDown in Buffalo. And yeah, I like an hour later, I'm in the ring in the main event of SmackDown against Bryan Danielson. That was it's one of the most memorable nights of my entire career for sure. The fact that it went so well is wild. But it's just a testament to how talented Bryan is, and I guess the chemistry that me and him have together as well. So that was a really, really special night. Really, really cool.
Yeah, for people who worked at the company, who had been there significantly longer than me, that's considered one of the craziest days in television history at the company, which says a lot. I had taken off, and because I did not want to go to Saudi Arabia or get up and come in at 4 a.m. for the production meeting and zoom into it. And I had just gotten my approval to move to LA, and they were like, "Oh, can you fly to Saudi?" And like, I was like, "No, sorry." But so I was like on vacation, and my phone started blowing up, and it was like the people who were stuck there, and apparently like everything was on the table of like every idea, everything was thrown out. Like, from my understanding, it was like a small room of like the writers and Vince and Hunter and Stephanie, and they were just like going through everything. And the fact that like the bet was made, like I think it really says a lot that they decided the idea to bring NXT into the Survivor Series was always like a little hesitant, because kind of a little bit of a separation, and keep like NXT special. But like, out of all the things talked about, like very big things were talked about, and they're like, we're pulling the trigger on NXT because of what the brand had become. Right. And like, all the time, you're the face of that. And like being there with Daniel, and like, you and I, when we talked about doing this podcast, we were kind of talking about that time period, because that's when I left NXT and joined Raw, like as only on Raw, because they split the teams. Yeah. But like, kind of going back to like your run in that, like that whole month for you, I feel like wraps up a whole Hall of Fame case. Like, you're in the ring with Daniel Bryan, then Seth Rollins, then ladder matches, then Pete Dunne. You're wrestling like essentially 30-minute matches every night a week while cutting like amazing promos. It's like things that would like make people's like 3 or 4 years, you did in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that November 2019 was like instrumental in not just my career, like for that year, because that year, like in a lot of publications, I got nominated Wrestler of the Year just for that November. And not to discredit anything I had done before then, obviously that played a part as well. But I think everyone recognized how crazy that specific month was for me. And it was just one of those things where, again, I know there are a lot of guys who were in my situation. They would have done the exact same thing. I happened to be the right guy at the right place at the right time. And there was no way that I was going to pass, on that opportunity. Again, the fact that, because like you had mentioned, it all started with that Bryan match on SmackDown. And then because that was received so well, it was Sunday night at 10 p.m. After that Friday night SmackDown. It was, hey, you got to go to Raw on Monday, tomorrow morning, get ready to get on a flight, and you're going to wrestle Seth Rollins in the main event. And then I knew I had a ladder match with Dijak, on NXT. And then I had an 8-man tag on SmackDown. It was cutting a promo in the ring. The craziest thing was the fact that I had the WarGames NXT match on the Saturday. And I took the craziest bump of my entire career that I will never take again. God bless him. I love him. Yeah, I'm okay and I'm fine. But the air raid crash from the top of the cage through the table, going back and looking at it is horrifying. And then less than 24 hours later, I'm wrestling Pete Dunne in a 20-minute NXT championship match. So it was such an insane month. But I wouldn't change it for anything.
We were like, for WarGames, we should probably talk more about WarGames too. Like,
sure. Yeah.
Like, as you're not always in arena when you're writing there because you're always busy, but like you try to make time for big things. So like you go out for WarGames. Everyone was pretty scared after that bump. Like everyone was really like, it was like, oh, okay, well, NXT is canceled.
I am the craziest part about it too is I think you know this, but maybe I haven't told you, but a lot of my like close friends know I am terrified of heights, by the way.
Yeah.
Like absolutely horrified. Like for the most part, every single time there's been a WarGames and I know I'm going off the top of the cage, which has been almost every single one. I end up climbing up there beforehand. And again, similar to the adrenaline rush feeling of my legs shaking, only a little bit different. When I climb the top of the cage, my legs are shaking from fear, like legit physical fear. I hate heights. I hate them. But there's this like desire to entertain, I think. And I know that like if I'm the, leader of the heel group, and this is supposed to be like a cool feel good moment, I know I've got to be the guy to fall off the top of the cage. And on top of that, just in a lot of ways, it fit the story a lot of the times. But every single time I've climbed up there, I have had this massive amount of fear where I'm like, oh my God, here we go. But it's the weirdest feeling when you're up there and all the fans are there, because you have like this acceptance of like, I don't care what happens, man. Whatever happens, I'm falling off this thing. I'm going to be fine. I'm not even going to think about it. Here we go. And I just close my eyes and hope for the best. But it's horrifying.
So scary. And I think we should dive more into WarGames, but like just like to give a little context about like this month and like that SmackDown, like to put where it was in like the timeline of WWE, they literally like just started on Fox after signing this $1 billion deal.
Yes.
Within like 4 or 6 weeks. I forget. I think like the first SmackDown in Staples, now known as the Crypt, was September, like late September. I may be wrong on that. Like, and this is November, and it's just like, oh, like this Fox relationship is still new, and you may not be able to put on a show. And like to be called on that, I think that just shows how loved and respected and how trusted you were. But like going back to WarGames, like, right after you debuted at the Barclays, you were in the first WarGame match in years. And like, you were just kind of talking about the heights and stuff, but like, how do you, especially too, like, unlike a lot of WarGames, like this was multiple teams.
Yeah.
How do you go about like thinking about putting that match together?
Yeah. So that entire process was so intimidating, especially because it was my first NXT takeover performance. Like I debuted by jumping Drew, and then the very next takeover, the main event was Undisputed Era, Sanity, AOP, Roddy, all of us in the first ever WarGames match in WWE, not just NXT, but in WWE. So I was like, oh my God, here we go. And it was really, really intimidating. But fortunately, because I was such a big fan of the WarGames matches, and you had a bunch of guys in there who, again, eat, sleep, and breathe pro wrestling and love what we do. It was like exciting to put the whole thing together. And that was the most fun part, because in my opinion, the most stressful one, aside from the fact that I had just debuted for NXT, but it was also the first one we did. The first WarGames was definitely the most stressful as far as like figuring out kind of how we wanted to do it, what we wanted to do. And they've always kind of been different, every single one. Yeah. So that made it interesting and exciting as well. And there was a process that we learned along the way, where I remember in the beginning, because a lot of us had that mentality of like, we always need to be doing something, that I learned after the first one, that if you take something crazy and you lay there for 2 minutes, no one really cares, because there's so much action going on with everyone else, and that's okay. So anytime it was, someone was in their first WarGames match, that was always a process, letting everyone know that like, hey, it's okay if we're kind of not the focus for a second. Trust me, it'll be back on us in a minute. So, but yeah, the process was really, really fun, mainly because of the crew of guys that we had. You know, every single WarGames match that I had, I loved the guys that I worked with, loved the matches we had. Again, those fans for every single WarGames match were amazing. So yeah, really, really fun. Really enjoyed it.
Those were so cool to.
Yeah, I loved them. I loved them.
And then after that, right, we go to, and Nick, you're Mr. South Jersey, Philadelphia. Like that's the Philadelphia Rumble after that, right?
That was
Who won it?
Yeah.
Who won it?
Well, I forget. I think that was
Because I was there for Shinsuke, Asuka, Roman.
I think that was Shinsuke because then it's
Okay.
New Orleans and you get AJ Shinsuke there.
Shinsuke was the winner of the one that I was in, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was Philadelphia.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
a crazy weekend too. Because so the night before you wrestled Alistair and both of you guys or Tommy and both of you guys, who's also, I think, going to be doing this podcast, we're really excited about and bringing this match up. But you guys had one of the best matches I was ever in person for in Philly there. And I don't know if you know this, like it really, I think that match kind of, Alistair kind of has like a dark look and you're not really sure what to do with him at times. I think like that match really took notice. And like, I think it kind of put him on the map internally. And a lot of that is like the work you were doing with him in that match.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's very cool.
Like, I know like there are people, like, I think one of the reasons, he was such a focal point of Raw and kept like, was because of that match. And it kind of like was a big career changer. And like, it's still like one of the hardest hitting, most physical matches I think I ever saw at a TakeOver.
Yeah. That one was really, really violent. I remember I took I had this wild idea because we were in Philadelphia and I had seen the Necro Butcher is his name. And I had seen him take this crazy bump on these chairs, not butt to butt, but like back to back, like, like this. And I remember having this wild idea of, oh my God, it's my first TakeOver singles match. I want to have this crazy moment in this match. And Alistair gave me this Death Valley driver on top of the chairs. And I remember thinking, I don't think this has been seen in WWE before. So I was really excited to do that. And it was in Philly. Again, I had gone to countless shows in Philadelphia. Like as a fan, Philly was where I went to go watch WWE. So nice. I wanted to make an impression. I was like, oh God, I got to do my absolute best to have a good one. And funny enough, though, like not to gloss over that match because I did really enjoy it, but I was told afterwards at like 11 p.m. that night, Triple H told me, hey, by the way, you're in the Rumble tomorrow. So I was expecting to go home. Like no one had told me anything. So I had this match with Alistair and then I was told I was going to be in the Rumble. So I'm like super excited, super elated. And again, a similar feeling of being like, okay, I debuted at NXT TakeOver in Brooklyn, and these are the diehard of the diehard WWE fans. But how are the fans at the Royal Rumble? Like maybe these people just watch Raw and SmackDown. Maybe they're not going to care. And I remember being like pleasantly surprised with the reaction. Like people were actually excited I was there. So that was really, really cool. And then I got to stand in the ring because Rey Mysterio was like a surprise entrant as well. And standing in the ring when Booyaka, it was like so cool. I of course I'm thinking, a million things that I wasn't in there for very long, but that was still like a place to debut in the Royal Rumble in Philly. I wouldn't have asked for a better spot.
Yes, sir.
When did you, as Nick is Philly proud, I went to school right outside Philly. So like when when you talk about seeing wrestling shows in Philly, not to speak for Nick, but I think I could totally relate about how awesome it is.
Yeah. The FU Center.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
When did that day? So like that day, when did you find out you were working with Rey Mysterio?
Oh my God. So I'd say a couple hours before, but I didn't even speak with Rey until 30 minutes before I walked through the curtain. Like, because again, things were so hidden. and so protected at that point. I think that was the same Rumble that Ronda debuted as well.
Yes.
So there was like a lot of like hidden stuff that day, I remember. So yeah, like a lot of it was super, super last minute, which was of course very stressful. That was the thing that I had not experienced in my career at that point. Now it's like I'm used to it. That's just how we do the show. But yeah, at the time, again, it's a lot of pressure because it's what I wanted to do since I was 9. WWE was my dream and my goal and everything I ever wanted. And now all of a sudden, less than 24 hours after I'm told by Triple H, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble in Philadelphia. I'm thinking First Union Center, like all the shows I used to go to. And hey, Rey Mysterio is going to be in there with you and you're going to get eliminated by him. It was just the whole thing. It happens so fast that you don't even have time to process it. It's like the anxiety and the stress almost comes afterwards. It's the weirdest feeling. Like you're in this like super zoned out moment where you have a job to do, and then it hits you later. So, but yeah, it all, I was told last minute about a lot of stuff. Yeah.
As well, that's the thing, like kind of going back to like opportunities and stuff.
Yeah.
It's everything's an opportunity. And like, I think the thing that like really defines your career in a good way is like outside of the matches, outside of the promos, outside of all these things, like you always, like everyone references the brass ring, like you didn't just grab it, you always like tore it down and ran with it, which is like too, like, going to the next like takeover, like in New Orleans, like for Mania weekend, like that was like a pretty crazy time because that's when Bobby got hurt, right?
Yeah, that was because that was when Bobby got hurt. Like I believe, like a couple days before. It was like we had like a house show loop leading into that takeover, and Bobby got hurt, and no one knew what to do. And I think it was that day or the day before where I was told, "Hey, you're going to be in this 5 or 6 man ladder match for the inaugural North American Championship, and then also." You're going to help Kyle defend the NXT tag team titles. And we had a very short match in between ours for me to get ready. So that event was also crazy for so many different reasons. Number one, to be able to say I was the first ever NXT North American champion was pretty awesome in a crazy ladder match that a lot of people really enjoyed. And then again, 20 minutes later, to have to go and help Kyle defend the tag titles was pretty wild. And then also that to me is when the real Undisputed Era started.
100%.
Because that's when Roderick Strong joined and we were like a 4-man crew at that point. We had multiple championships. It was just such a cool night. That was an amazing night for me, for sure. And for our whole group.
Yeah. Really for NXT in general, like to go behind the curtain on that.
Yeah.
So that was when that happened. It was right before the TV taping going into TakeOver and Mania.
Yeah.
And that was one of the longest meetings the night before a TV taping I've ever been in at NXT. Like, I think the production meeting was even canceled. And like, we had like long talks. I, at one point, to give an admittance, pitched, well, if Bobby's hurt, let's have Adam turn on Kyle and go to a singles program, because I really thought like within the next year you would be on be on Raw or SmackDown anyway.
Sure.
And like I have never pitched an idea that got so much anger towards me than that. And like Gabe was like, well, you're breaking up Undisputed Era? Like he's throwing up his hands. Bel Castro was like, Chris, I love you. Please don't pitch that to Hunter. And like, so we were there and we were talking about it, and like the story really built up well, and like a lot of things came together. Like we backtracked the story of like you 4 guys, like 4 being Roddy, who's not in the group at this point. And with like the offering of the arm brand that Roddy kept turning down. And it felt like adding Roddy was like the natural thing. And like Hunter, really came up with a brilliant story point of like, Adam Cole is in a ladder match. He's sacrificing his body for Kyle in this match. And Roddy was teaming with Pete Dunne, right? For this match?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think if Roddy's there and he's been this man on an island and like bouncing around people, and he sees like Adam just sacrificing himself for his brothers, why wouldn't Roddy want to be a part of it? And like it led to this amazing moment. Like, wrestling, as much as like, if you do a 450 flip, it's really cool. If you can lift somebody really high, it's really cool. It really comes down to you are watching like a movie or a TV show in a lot of ways, and it's cinema and it's theater. And like the way that Roddy pulled that off, but then like you and Kyle also sold the moment in shock. It was like, what just happened? And the fact that you guys didn't know, it made like a really classic moment when you go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, it was the reaction to it like kind of solidified the fact that it was a good call. I think in a lot of ways. I remember like I don't mean to speak for him, but he said this to me before. I think he said it before in interviews before too, but Roddy often goes back to that night where he turned on Pete and put the armband on and the crowd reaction, and he looks back on that as one of his favorite nights of his entire career, and it's one of mine too. Also, this is a little bit behind the curtain as well, but I remember originally when me, Bobby, and Kyle were talked to about being this group, it was specifically said to us when we came together, like, hey, Undisputed Era is not going to be like an NWO. Like, it's not going to be a thing where like all these different people join and guys turn on different people and, you bring new people in, kick, certain people out. It's going to be just you three as this brotherhood dominant group. And then again, just a short amount of time later, the idea was brought to us where they said, hey, what do you guys think about Roderick Strong joining the group? And I remember without us even saying anything to each other, I chimed in to Bobby and Kyle and I said, guys, of anybody to join the group and make it complete and full, it's Roddy and nobody else. And both of them were like, I was going to say the exact same thing.
That's awesome.
So it was like all of us were on the same page, Roddy included, as far as being in the group. Again, aside from the fact that we've known each other for so long, it just, I think, fit the mold of what we were bringing to the table at that time in NXT. And to just touch a little bit on what you said about Hunter's vision of like the whole, me sacrificing myself for Kyle, man, it's just so brilliant. It's like such a deep level of thinking when it comes to storytelling and moments and heroes and villains, or like not even heroes and villains, because technically you could look at that and say like, that's an admirable quality, but I was like a dirtbag in NXT, but it's still like an admirable thing that would make someone who's maybe not as successful in what they want to do and go, no, I want to be involved with something like that. I want to be involved with a group of people who care about each other and will do anything for each other, because that's human emotion at the end of the day. So I know everyone knows how smart he is, but like, God, he deserves way more credit than I think he gets sometimes. As far as thinking like that.
He also I think he's a student of storytelling to an extent. He's like, okay, Marvel's popular. Why is Marvel popular?
Yes.
And he won't go into detail with that with you, like at least me. But he'll say things in production meetings, and you would see this a lot when he was on Raw and SmackDown meetings. Like he would go to Vince and he was like, Vince, this is very popular right now. This works because of X and this works because of Y. And this is how we can take this and make it our own.
Yep.
And he's really smart with that. And like, too, like, I think somebody who doesn't like to be talked about, who I'm going to talk about, Joe Bel Castro. I think like one thing, he was such a defining person in NXT as the lead writer, and like he left to go write a book, which is fantastic, where if you can get it, definitely buy it. He's such a good guy, and like he was a big supporter of my career, and like I learned a lot from him. One thing he was really good, especially that night in that room, he backtracked the story in such a good way.
Yeah.
And he like could break it down essentially in so many different ways. It's like kind of like, the next year when I was working more on SmackDown and we were doing like I think it was next year, the Charlotte, Becky, Ronda stuff. Like he kind of really taught me to look at wrestling storytelling as like what the package is. So it's like we're pitching this, like what are the moments you can kind of do with that? And he kind of like retrofitted that story to work in his mind. That was quite brilliant and like quite smart and like such a talented group of people to be around down there.
Oh my God. Yeah. What a crew. Seriously. Yeah. Everyone's so much so on the same page and like excited to work together. Like it really, really was. Again, I'm glad you brought up Joe Belcastro because he was, again, he was another one who was instrumental in the Undisputed Era working whatsoever. He was a great guy to work for. He really, really was.
He was like, when it comes to like sanity and like,
yep.
Like AOP, like he really crafted these stories and these characters in such a good way and like, really dedicated so much time to it and like unsung hero. And I think that's partially like he does not like the attention, but he is so
well. You're gonna get it, Joe. You're gonna get
it. So goddamn. But yeah, it really. You are in the meat grinder working a 52-week-a-year show at WWE.
Yeah.
Wrestling is your life. Like I've never seen glow, and that's mainly because you're watching 7 hours of wrestling a week just internally, and that doesn't include, like you're watching what the indies are doing or what's going on in Japan to see like if there's anyone you should sign or if there's like any like new moves or just whatever. When you're at NXT, you are really like. You feel part of a team and you like want to run through a wall and like it was Definitely. Like for the brand and like you like I told Hunter like and like I got like probably like a little too like personal, like not personal but I guess like emotional. I was like, man, like when we were at Takeover 25 in Connecticut, that was like the best night of my career at WWE and like at that point in such a big way. And like I remember like leaving like what we kind of talked about before around that period around like the Daniel match and the Survivor Series and all that stuff. Like I was heartbroken to like not be on NXT anymore. It was just like it was a real like myself and another writer tried to get approval for us to fly from Raw every week and then do NXT live every week, and they're like, no. So,
that's awesome though.
Yeah.
That's just a testament to like again the bond that a lot of us formed like in that environment. It really did. It felt like this like giant victory every single time that we had like a really awesome or epic show. Like it was like the whole team, the entire crew was like, oh my God, we did it. Oh man, the fans loved it. And everyone was so stoked and so happy. So I totally get it. And I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
All awesome stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to break it up a little. Adam, I know you're a big video games fan.
Big time.
There we go. Who was your go-to guy for WrestleMania 2000 and or No Mercy?
Oh, wow. Good question.
Ooh, great question. So generally speaking, at that time, I did mostly play as Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was my go-to. I was not very good at the creative wrestler aspect of the game. But again, if I'm not picking Stone Cold, I'm picking like X-Pac. He because I loved his No Mercy taunt.
Oh,
I loved the No Mercy taunt so much.
so good.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
I was either Ken Shamrock or Steve Blackman. I don't know.
Oh, nice.
My go-to
Those are
guys.
both good ones too.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have a somewhat interesting wrestling video game story in the sense of I remember I think it was Warzone on the PlayStation 1. Do you guys remember that game? Okay. So I remember renting it and being so excited. It was like my first proper wrestling game when I was like really into wrestling that I could have because we got a PlayStation 1. And I remember I loved Stone Cold. I was so excited to pick him as my character. And when he walked out to his music and that music played, I was so pumped. And when he stood on that turnbuckle and went to do his taunt and he did this.
Oh,
I lost my mind. I was so sad. I'm like, why can't you just close the fists, dude?
Yeah.
Come on, please. I was so sad. I was so sad. But again, I get it. Technology at that time is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But I remember I wanted so badly Stone Cold to have his fist closed because at that time when I was, first falling into wrestling, I loved just entrances most of the time.
Yeah.
And Stone Cold was my guy. He was my first favorite wrestler. But yeah, I remember that's just a funny little side note of like in Warzone, his hands were like this instead of closed. I was so disappointed.
I used to get so frustrated with those games. The first one I really loved, there was a WCW one, I think around I'm trying to think. It was the Wolfpack was in it, so it had to be 97, 98. And I thought that was the perfect game. And it had everyone in it. And then I don't know if you guys would do this, but I would go okay, let's create a character. I would go online to AOL and wait for the modem to load up, and then figure out how to create the WWF guys. And
right. Oh my God, there were so many good N64 wrestling games. Oh my word, so many good ones. And funny enough, though, too, now that I'm super into video games, I very rarely play wrestling games. I love pro wrestling to death, and I love video games to death, but I keep them separated in a lot of ways. So, but wrestling games are great. Yeah, they're awesome. I have a lot of great memories with them.
I used to, as a writer, I used to get the games for free.
Oh, nice.
And I never played them just because kind of going back to the old thing, I wish I had them now because I would totally play them now. But it's just I don't know if you feel this way and this is why you don't. It's just wrestling is your life pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, it is for sure. So that was actually funny enough. So I casually played video games my whole life. My first memory ever, not of video games or of wrestling, my first memory of my life was waking up really early one morning, and my dad had stayed up all night and got the best bike you can get in Road Rash on Sega Genesis. And I was really excited that he got the Diablo bike in Road Rash. So I loved playing them, but when I was 9 years old, it was wrestling 100% of the time. I would play video games. I loved the PlayStation 1 and N64 and PS2 and GameCube and all that stuff because my brother was really into them. But at the end of the day, if wrestling was on where I could train or read a wrestling magazine, I was picking that over video games. So in 2015, I'd been wrestling for quite a few years. I had already traveled the world, and I got to a point where I was kind of I really need a hobby outside of my job because it was just wrestling all the time. And I love wrestling. It's by no means anything negative towards it, but I was I need some sort of separation from it. And I'll never forget, my brother came home because we played Halo a lot when I was in high school. And my brother came home one day and he goes, Halo 5 just came out today. And I was living with my brother and another roommate of mine at the time. And I said, hey, Brent, do you mind if I play Halo 5 on your Xbox? It was just bored. I had slept in till 1 p.m. or something crazy because I got home from Japan or something wild. So I started playing it. I stayed up till 8 a.m. and beat the whole campaign. And I was like,
wow,
whoa, this is so much fun. And I played it again the next day. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to buy an Xbox. And the rest was history. So from 2015 on, I've been passionately into games, outside of wrestling. And not to bring it back to this, but one of the biggest things is the storytelling aspect of it. Games at this point have turned into AAA movies in a lot of ways, where some of the dialogue and good versus evil scenarios that they put in these games, where you get to play these characters, inspire me. Again, I can't tell you how many times I've been inspired from a character in a game for a promo in a wrestling ring, just based on certain things that guys have said or mannerisms or characteristics or what have you. So it's helped me professionally, actually, to kind of separate the two versus just, studying wrestling 24/7.
Totally. It's like, I think like you've been really good about one thing in your career of like, I think the people that kind of are just, you need to, I think in a lot of fields like this, you have to like be all in.
Yeah, for
on it.
sure.
But you also have to know yourself and like give yourself like, you can't just all be it, because you need to be a well-rounded person.
Yes.
And you need to bring things from outside to be successful, and like, you
Yes.
know, like learn things. And I think like that's like, you know, one thing you've always been like really good about.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Because, you know, again, I've said before, I feel like if I wasn't obsessed with pro wrestling, I wouldn't be where I am today. I think the obsession to the industry has been vital in the fact that I've gotten to do so many things I've done, especially considering the fact that, again, I'm not like a huge guy, you know, I'm not by any means. So I had to teach myself or make sure that I was at least pretty good at pretty much everything within the industry. And I have consumed myself within the job. But like you had just said, it's so important to be able to kind of turn it off for a second, because I used to be in a phase where, God, if I had a performance that I was really happy with, I had a great week and I was just happy my entire life, no matter what happened. Hey, it doesn't matter. I had a great match on Wednesday. And then if it didn't go well, then I was sad and depressed and upset with myself if it didn't go well. And that's a very dangerous hole to fall in. So if you can find yourself in a situation where you still put as much commitment and passion into what you love and what your number one priority is, while at the same time having other things that can bring you happiness or what have you, I think that's vital. I think it's really, really important.
It really is such a game changer. As one of the producers of Bailey, This Is Your Life, I was very sad for like when you have a segment that goes like rough, you get depressed, and then it's just like, okay, like you have to like put this over here, and then like,
yes,
you
have to.
There's always going to be another show.
Yep, for sure.
In 2020, you started feuding, I think, with Pat McAfee, correct?
I think it was 2020.
And I know there's a lot of hate there. Has things cooled off?
No, not at all. I hate that SOB. I hate him. But I will say this. About Pat McAfee. All right. I can't stand him. He's a scumbag, as he calls me often, but he's incredibly talented. It's kind of unbelievable how well he's done in literally every aspect of the job, whether it be the in-ring performance or the talking ability, which everyone knows he already has. He's crazy athletic, has so much potential to be and do whatever he wants in the pro wrestling industry. But I can't stand him. I hate his guts.
It's really nuts. Like, jokes aside, that he, Pat, the guy who would get in trouble for wearing shorts on the kickoff shows, would end up at WrestleMania dealing with Vince McMahon and Stone Cold.
Unbelievable. One of the highlights of the whole weekend.
Yeah.
For real. Like the entire WrestleMania weekend, Pat was one of the highlights. Like top 3 to me, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, without question.
And he took the stunner so well. Like I remember I learned a lot about wrestling when Kevin brought it back. And Shane was supposed to take a stunner and he went the wrong direction. And you realize how like one little thing like that about like somebody being off about which way they're supposed to turn can like blow something so like in such a big way. But like, Pat, like, he wasn't, in New Japan for like 6 years. Like,
yes, right.
Like, but he's taking things and it's looking great. And like how, that's actually a question like I wanted to ask you, like when what was that match like for you to put together? Because like you had to, like, when you're working with people at NXT, like they have experience, like and if they don't and they're green, you're at the performance center with them on a regular basis, so you can work with things. Like Pat he was completely new to it, And then B, his schedule really doesn't allow him to like come in and like do anything.
No. So that is the thing about McAfee that was so impressive, like on so many levels, was not just, again, like Pat's a rock star in a lot of ways. You know, he's a guy who is very well known. A lot of people know who he is. There are people to this day who hate me because they saw the podcast thing with me and him getting into an altercation. There are people who for real like hate my guts from that thing, which is awesome. But yeah, so but Pat like has such a incredible amount of respect for what we do that it didn't surprise me in the least to see how well he did at WrestleMania, because I know in the small time that he was involved in NXT, again, no matter who he was interacting with, no matter what he was doing, he never, ever had a know-it-all attitude, or like, I know exactly what to do and when to do it. No one can tell me what to do. Pat wanted to learn. He wanted to make sure the show was as entertaining as possible in every single situation, no matter what the segment was, whether it was a promo or a match or what have you. Pat was all about like respecting the guys he was in there with and making that segment as entertaining as possible, because Pat loves wrestling. And again, truth be told, I know generally you would think, of course that's what you would do. But for a guy like Pat, who doesn't have to think that way and could probably get away with it, he still did, which did make me gain a little bit of respect for him, aside from the fact that he's a piece of trash. But yeah.
Yeah, there was one promo in particular where we had a student from Johnny's school who was great guy.
Yes. But
like, it really shows what an amazing performer you are, because like you had to help him through the promo because he had never done a live television promo before.
Well, the whole Gargano feud was crazy for me, and I think for everybody, because again, like the Tommaso Ciampa Johnny Gargano story was, in my opinion, like the best story ever told in NXT, like
Agreed.
Top to bottom. It was just so brilliantly done on so many levels. So we go from thinking Johnny's going to have his big moment with Tommaso WrestleMania weekend, and then Tommaso needs neck surgery and they need this drastic last minute replacement. And they're like, oh my God, what do we do? Okay, I guess we'll do Cole and Gargano WrestleMania weekend at this takeover. And then it ended up being what many people call one of the best takeover matches ever, which is wild because me and Johnny have wanted to work together on a platform like that for a really long time. So it's crazy how that worked out. And then again, like we had talked about, like the promo segments of me going to the school that Johnny was at and us traveling all over the country to film all this different stuff and winning the championship at TakeOver 25, which was the first like standalone NXT takeover, I believe, which was really cool. My mom and
with that takeover, it was run in Hartford.
Yes. Yeah.
They hadn't run that building in forever because, it just wasn't doing well. And it was a complete sellout.
Oh, I didn't know it wasn't doing well. Oh, that's
no,
so cool.
not NXT, but like,
no, I know. That's what I mean. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was such a working with you two on that story was like so amazing.
Yeah.
I will say this, like I doubt you follow me on Twitter. I was I obviously care about your career, and I don't know, I've never told you this, and it's a little embarrassing. A running joke, because like the writers make fun of each other. I was sarcastically called the fifth member of Undisputed Era for a while, so I have a very heartfelt, I care about all of you guys. I think Johnny Russo coined that, but
hey, you know what? You should be proud of that term.
I am proud of that,
and I'm proud of it too.
Okay,
you were a welcome fifth member of the Undisputed Era.
I just did not want to embarrass you by letting you know that
not at
I
all.
was associated with you. But I think I tweeted something like when, in your free agency, I was like, man, because like I really hope Adam goes to Raw or SmackDown, because I was worried. I really do believe in, like, Vince has a philosophy about spotlights. And, like, the more people you put into it, the less the light becomes. And I was just like, AEW signing all these guys. Like, it doesn't really feel like Punk or Daniel or Brian, I'm sorry, or Adam, like, would really get this moment. And just as a friend of yours and a fan of yours, like, you have just like it doesn't matter how many people AEW signed, and like, you have been crushing it. And like, same thing with Bobby and Kyle, and like, it's been so fun to watch as a fan every week. And like, I can't wait for the Forum show in June. And like, you have got somebody I really respect had like a saying about, like, people at NXT and Indies, like, when you're kind of moving up the ladder, it's like, man, if you were a mid-card guy in the Indies, you're going to be a mid-card guy at NXT, and you're going to be a mid-card guy on Raw or SmackDown. And, I think one thing you've proven is that, like, no matter where you are, you always find a way to be in the main event. And it's been really great to see. And like, hats off to Tony. Like, he brought a lot of people in, and people thought it was too much. And it's been like just phenomenal television.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And a lot of that, like I said, well, first of all, again, thank you so much. That means a lot to me, for real. But so again, getting to know Tony on the level that I have has been so cool. Aside from the fact that I think he's a wonderful, wonderful person. Like, he treated me so well. I met him 2 years before I started working for him, and he was always so kind and so nice to me. But my God, does that guy love professional wrestling? He loves pro wrestling, and he respects the history of it and what you've done. Like, again, like, a big thing for me was early on in my AEW career, there was a point where there was an 8-man tag booked, where it was me, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks against I think it was Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, Christian Cage, and Bryan Danielson. And Tony was so excited to do this match, because he goes, God, the four of you have only teamed together one time, and it was one time in New Japan on June, whatever, And it was like a New Japan house show. Like, the fact that he knew exactly when we teamed was unbelievable. And it's just so telling about how much pro wrestling means to him. And again, like, Tony said one time in an interview that I was the only guy he was afraid of when it came to the AEW versus NXT war or feud that was going on, which was a very, very nice thing to say. So I've been having such a blast and such a good time. It's been so cool to wrestle in front of just these rabid, passionate fans every single week at AEW, and getting to travel with Britt has been amazing as well. So yeah, it's been great, man.
As she always
she's doing so well. So well.
It's everything. Like, I think Tony deserves a lot of credit. Like, I haven't always loved the comments about writers at WWE, but I will say, like, he has been, like, he's really created something like so amazing. And like, from, it doesn't matter, like, whether, like, his father, like, him and his father, like, own the Jaguars or whatever. Like, a lot of people have money, and they don't use it well. And like, it's very hard to do these shows and do them well. And like, I think too, like, not only are they great shows, but in addition to that, like, when you talk to, I have a lot of friends in AEW. Anytime I talk to them, always happy, love coming to work every day.
For sure. And a lot of that is because, again, in a leadership role like that, he is so happy all the time. Like, lots of times I will sit in Gorilla or like kind of watch from start to finish. Like, would say if there's dark elevation matches that start before Dynamite and then Rampage afterwards or whatever, from like for 4 hours, Tony is elated and ecstatic about every single match that's in the ring, which is so important. He's excited before the show starts, and he's excited after the show. It really, really helps. There's like the pressure is still there, but the pressure more so comes from ourselves. Like we have a certain expectation of like, when I walk to the ring, I have a certain expectation of what I think Adam Cole should bring to the table and what I should do and the performance that I expect from myself and what I know the fans expect from me. But there's no like, I'm never afraid of Tony being disappointed with me whatsoever. Like, he is just so encouraging, so supportive. I love him to death. He's an amazing boss.
That makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to close out the show.
Yeah. We took up about a lot more time than you expected, Adam, but it was just like,
oh my God, guys, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
For sure.
I will see you on the 27th.
Oh, nice.
Course, baby.
Awesome.
Yes, sir. Again, I'll say it again. I said it from the very top. It's so cool to talk to, guys in the industry, wrestlers, people like you, Adam. Thanks again for coming on, but it's all about the charity. So we appreciate it. The description is below. The link is in that. Please click and donate if you can.
Awesome.
Please do. Please do.
Thank you, Nick.
Yep. Peace.